This is like the first real cola. I like it, man. I dig this. Okay, this is fun. What's this? A whole pile of traction? I think it is. And this time around, I got a special guest with me. What's up, everybody? It's Devin from Head Up, Throttle Down. I am with my boy Will here on the Unnamed Project, and we're gonna throw these tracks on this machine and see how it does in the snow. Let's get it going. Ow. Well, all right, your man Porter coming at you again from the Unnamed Project here. So you know what's up this time around. We spilled the beans a little bit on you. This has been a series of videos that I've been wanting to do for a little bit here. I cut them into short little vids so you guys had an idea of every step along the way. This is probably the most visually dramatic thing that we're gonna do on this. If you missed the last episodes, basically what we did is we put a heater inside of this 2024 Can Am Maverick X3. Then after that, we followed it up with a full soft cab enclosure. Pretty awesome, I gotta say. The last piece of the puzzle are these tracks. Let's get it going. All right, folks, obviously the first step is gonna be to buy yourself a shop with a giant lift. That's the first most critical. Now, you can do this anywhere you have a little bit of room, right? The lift definitely helps, but a jack with a couple simple set of blocks or whatever, just to kind of set everything level as you're jacking, that's more than enough. So we'll push this thing in here. I'm gonna use the luxury of having the lift here. It's gonna make this job a whole lot easier. It's too heavy. Probably around there. Okay, so amongst the things you have to do is install a series of brackets, right? So the first thing you're gonna want is find these two. They're the same for both sides. They have to be inserted. They don't have to, but it's way easier to insert them while the car is on the ground. Because what happens, as you can see right here, as soon as you start lifting, everything starts binding up here, and then it's next to impossible to put these on afterwards. So we're gonna go ahead and slide this one in right away. Just leave it loose, you know what I mean? Doesn't need to be a whole lot. And then we have this other bracket here. This one actually is conveniently labeled to where, it should go and all that. So it corresponds to here. If you're not sure, there's an arrow. The arrow has to point forward. Cool. Now we can go ahead, lift this guy up and rip the tires off. Oh my God, I don't remember to use this. Here we go. Okay, so amongst all the stuff that comes in, there's two of these bolts that don't have a washer attached to it. What I mean is these guys, for example, have a flared head on them. This one does not. So you have to put it in place before you do anything. So same as these brackets, like you can't take these off once the suspension's extended. So when you use the big honking pieces, which are also labeled for which side they go, pretty cool, you have to install this bolt in first. Then afterwards, you have to start swearing while you're trying to hold everything in place and put a few bolts in. So luckily for me, I got somebody to give me a hand. So I'm just gonna start by loosely putting the bolts in for this first bracket, one of the ones that we slipped in beforehand, if it allows me. All right, now you let your helper hang there. He's doing a good job. And then you're gonna need these plates here, 4 spacers, and then the appropriate nuts and bolts that go with them. So those are made to pinch the frame completely at the top. I mean, pinch it, destroy it, warp it, whatever you want, really. It's all the same. I know everybody wants to start putting the tracks on right off the bat. Trust me, nobody wants it more than I do. Unfortunately, these need to go on first. I assume there's probably a way you could do this afterwards. Do I want to discover that way? Do you? No. All right, those are in place. You can let go at this point. Bam, look at that. All right, there's this last bracket here. It's a triangle. It matches with this bracket that we put on initially there. So basically, you try to get the bolts lined up. Now, if you don't have enough thread sticking out, it's because the bracket's too far down. So you can always move it back a little bit, and then all of a sudden you have all the threads in the world. And if you have sausage fingers like I do, yeah, it ain't fun. So nice and easy, right? So you can see why you have to place these brackets and these bolts in, especially the bottom one. No way of getting that one done or back in there after the fact. So there's nothing better, trust me, putting something together than taking it apart, then putting it together and then taking it apart. Then you might want to put it together another time, maybe 2-3 more times actually, then you finally get it right. Yeah, no, don't do that. Just get it right the first time around. All right, the brackets are on. Now it's time for the fun part. We got to put the tracks on. I can't wait to see what this thing looks like with tracks. We're not done at that point though. There's still a little bit to do in the front end with a bunch of, why am I talking about that? We'll get to it when we get to it. Let's put the tracks on. All right, let's put this on. Hey-ya! This is so aggressive. So realistically, this point here is just the center cog lines up where your rubber would normally line up. So it's very simplistic in that sense. So we're gonna slip it on like a wheel, and then you have to use the special lug nuts that they provide, which look like this. Chrome, not like the factory ones, which is black and capped off. That's the important part. All right, let's try to slide this on. Beautiful. Yeah, I like it. Safety nuts on. Kind of an interesting part though, is that the tracks, if you leave them like this, they're gonna rotate on themselves, slap him in the face. It looks absolutely horrible. So you don't wanna do that. How do I know? Don't ask. There's a bar that holds the track in place. It's an anti-rotation bar. So it allows the track to turn, but not the entire skid to move. And it's spring-loaded, so it can take impacts and whatnot. So next thing we're gonna do here is install this bar. And that's why, if you remember, we had a bolt on this piece that we had hanging loose, right? That's where that bar goes, between that and the skid, essentially. So when you go to install the torsion bar, the heim joint, which is the silver portion here, right? There's a sleeve that goes in the middle, then you have to put a washer on top, and then from the bottom side, there's another washer, right? And then the cone goes towards the heim. So we'll go ahead and slap that on there for now. So when we go to install the front here, the orientation of this is you put the washer first, you put the rubber on, you put the actual bar on, and then you put the nut at the end of it all. Yes, could you lift, please?
Of course, sir.
Oh yeah, small, more. Something like so. So what we're gonna do here is tighten all that stuff up. Then we're gonna look at putting the limiting cable on. So we'll be right back. Okay, so these models have a limiting cable on them, right? So the thick part, you'll see there's a difference in thickness on them, goes to the top side. So bolt first, and the center as a sleeve, and then the nut at the bottom. And then it simply goes back through. You'll see this little tab on the arm here. That's simply where it goes. So I went ahead here and jumped to the rear. So the rear is more the same of what the front was really. The only difference really is there's no limiting strap. So there's a bracket that has to get placed underneath the whole thing. That's the first thing we got to do. So let's go ahead and change that. Okay, so the rear has a oh my God. I'm sorry, there's a waterfall above me apparently. So the rear has a bracket as well, but a lot less complicated. It's just this unit right here. So what we have to do, we got to take a few things apart here. So there is the bottom bolt here, right? Really long bolt, about this long. We need to take that one off, and then you have to remove the mud scraper. So it's only a couple little 10mm sockets underneath here. So we'll get those cracked off first. There's another bracket that goes on this bracket. So what I like to do, I just find it simpler. You're gonna take the super long bolt that comes with the kit, and then we're gonna just align that through everything first. So we're trying to align basically everything.
Oh, it's slipped out.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, hold on. There you go.
Woo! So you guys can probably see that took no effort whatsoever. No, that was actually a pain, right? So having a friend to give you a hand, always a big thing. So now there's this bracket that has to go on there, right? And all it does basically is it goes on the end of the bolt. The nut goes in the back. These other short bolts go through it. And then before you tighten everything right down, you want to line up those little screws at the bottom here. So remember that dust scraper we took off, the mud scraper? In place of that, there's some new 10 mil socket bolts that are going to go in there.
So do these bolts actually have any function, or is it just to cover the holes?
I believe it's there to help with a little bit more rigidity, right? And at the same time, you're right, it probably protects the threads from all the mud and all the, well, not a whole lot of mud in the wintertime, but there's still debris that would get in there. Now, I can go ahead and let Devin put the tracks on.
Oh my goodness.
Consideration for this too, you have to think about it. We're adding these monstrosities on all four corners. We're putting all the bracketry in there. There's going to be a weight difference. So your machine is now going to weigh probably an extra, what would you say, good guess?
400, 500 pounds?
Yeah, 500 pounds easy, I'd say. So just something to keep in mind, right? Your machine is going to change weights. The characteristics are going to be a little bit different. And the way it handles will be way, way different, obviously. The other big thing too is you're winning another, I say almost 8 inches of ground clearance. So you're going to be a lot more top heavy now. So when you're going into like undulating terrain and whatnot, it might start becoming an issue. So just keep that in mind. All right, the monsoon in the Amazon rainforest continues here. Where was I? Yes, I know where I am. So these bars, right? They're much longer in the back. They're easy to recognize. The instruction manuals say to put it in the forwardmost hole. That's what we're going to do. And then we'll finish doing the fine adjustments once everything is back on the ground. But for now, all we're going to do is put the loosely put the bolt in through the front to hold the bar into place. And then everything else for the connection, we're going to wait until it's back on the ground. So the bars, when you put them on from factory, they're actually set pretty damn near to the point that you can just slap them on to be good to go. If they don't quite fit, you just got to move the angle of the track a little bit. And then what that does is it shortens or lengthens this distance here. When you put it back on the ground, it's going to straighten out and it's going to apply preload onto the spring that's in here, right? So same thing on all four corners. In the front, don't forget to put your limiting straps, right? Now we're going to put this thing down and do the last part, which is put the DPS in here, which is a module to make the power steering work properly and the speedometer work properly. Buddy, how's it look from the back?
Really good. So how tall are you, Will?
So I'm 6'5". Yeah. Okay, to be fair, it's going to settle as we move a little bit. So we'll wait until we back it up and move it forward a couple times there. It'll settle back down, then we'll do a little ride height comparison thing. So the DPS is this little tiny module, right? Basically what you do is you lift up the center cover, you click that back in, and then there's a receiving plug. You put the original plug back into the DPS. And then hopefully you tuck that away somewhere, which I'm not quite sure where yet. There we go. Look at that. What do I do now?
Go rip it.
Well, what do you think, bro?
I think it looks pretty badass.
I'm going to agree. So we checked it out. It dropped about say a good 3 inches. Actually, we forgot to measure it when it was still up there, but judging basically from where we both were in comparison to the cab, dropped roughly 3 inches. But the entire machine just won about 8 inches of ground clearance. This thing is absolutely insane. So what's the next step here?
Take it for a rip.
We gotta go take it for a rip. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So Will, what do you think?
I gotta say, this was a pretty good success, man. Like, we did a really good job on this one. It came along a lot easier than I thought it would. And honestly, I think anybody that's got a little bit of space and a little bit of time could definitely get this going. So it's going to be pretty awesome. You guys have to stay tuned on Devin's channel here, all right? Because he's going to be doing a review of the tracks and everything. Yeah, he is. You want to give him a little reminder again?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good deal. I held some brackets, and now you're going to let me rip this thing for a couple days. So super excited to see what this can do. I've honestly never ridden a machine with tracks before, so I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity, Will, and stay tuned.
Hell yeah. Heads up, Throttle Down. Go check it out. Your man Porter here signing out with
Devin from Head Up, Throttle Down.
We'll catch you on the next one.